DailyWire.com, the great Mary Margaret Olahan has the story up. Minnesota Catholic school leader warned Tim Walz of critical school safety threats. He did nothing. And this was in a letter 2 years before all of this. So back when the Tennessee Christian school, the Nashville shooting took place, there was a letter that was written to Governor Tim Walz asking for extra funding for and pointing out to a lack of security at Christian and religious schools because they were considered non-public schools.
Right.
And so public schools were getting ample security, but these non-public schools were not getting the same level of security. So he points out that in the letter, there were 72,000 students in independent Catholic, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim non-public schools within the state of Minnesota, saying our schools are under attack, particularly even at the time, Jewish and Muslim schools, but we're writing about the Christian schools as well, experience increased levels of threats. We need to take this very seriously. We need to ensure all our schools have these resources. And they were begging Tim Walz for this money. Instead, Tim Walz was working to protect transgenders and signed legislation establishing Minnesota as a trans refuge. So, look, they had the money, and that's where they sent the money. They knew that there was a lack of security, and potentially even the shooter knew that there was a lack of security because what did the shooter say that he was doing was conducting this reconnaissance prior to conducting the attack and noting that there was this lack of security, which presumably these public schools would not have had.
Right. I mean, another thing we could take solace in is since the 2020 Summer of Love, gun control is at its lowest level of support it's been like in decades, and then and that's just the aggregate. When you break it down between blue states and red states, any kind of majority, and it's slim, 52, 53%, ends up disappearing outright.
29 states are constitutional carry.
Exactly. And then you have, of course, almost 2,500 or so Second Amendment sanctuaries among the counties. And then even those who support gun control, even though it's like number 9 out of the 10 priority issues. So it's not a winning issue. And then you have a Supreme Court that's been pretty consistent in shooting down any challenge to the Second Amendment. So I think we're in good shape with that, and that's why I don't think they really go very far with it. They'll try. Even Obama tried to whip up some anti-Second Amendment sentiment, but it disappeared very quickly.
A big part of the reason is because the left tend to focus on semi-automatic rifles,
right?
Which, when you look into the numbers, there's something along the lines of it averages about 300 murders per year with a semi-automatic rifle.
Right?
What?
It's all handguns, right?
Yeah, it's all handguns. It's something. There's usually average of about 10,000 murders a year in the United States. 10,000 in a country of 330 million. That's actually
pretty very
per capita, not considerable. Right. And then when you take just rifles, like I said, it's like 300 or so average. It fluctuates a little bit. Everything's handguns. And if you ask the average person, they'll say, well, even people that are like against guns, they're like, oh, weapons of war shouldn't be on the street, et cetera. But then they say, well, what about handguns? Well, I think I should be able to have a handgun in my dresser in case someone breaks in. Right. So even once you get down into the nitty-gritty about gun control, it's unpopular with the vast majority of American people.
There was a very interesting study. You may have read it, called Shooters. Are you familiar with that term, Shooter?
I'm not.
Abigail, I can look it up. If you look at the author's name was Abigail something, and it's a doctoral dissertation from the University of Berkeley. Berkeley, okay. And she is a huge advocate for what she just simply calls the gun community. And she's a cultural anthropologist who studied the gun community, particularly in California, and she was blown away at how diverse it was. She started off being against it, and thinking she was dealing with a bunch of rural, whites in Shasta County or something like that. These patriot militias and so forth. She suddenly realized, wait, there's LGBT, there's black people are one of the biggest supporters of gun rights, and women in particular. And all of a sudden she realized this is one of the most diverse, widespread coalitions in the country. Vermont, is where I'm from. Delaware is as blue of a state as you can get. I can go into any gun shop, give them my license, and in 15 minutes I'm out of there with a Glock. No problem whatsoever. I've done it. So the point is that more and more, I think, the left is doing what they can, sort of galvanize what's left of just a shattered coalition. Because remember, the left's coalition became Trump's coalition. The working class became, this is a Newsweek article back in May, white working class in 2016, then the non-white working class in 2024. The Obama coalition is now the Trump coalition. The Democrats don't have a coalition.
No, they've really they've done so much hollowing out of their support. They really have a lower class or poor, basically poor people that are on some kind of government assistance that are reliably Democrat, and then they're the elites. The
elites,
people.
You got it.
Really,
so the underclass and then the super class.
Yeah,
exactly.
The middle class has moved to Donald Trump.
We saw it in Chicago with Mayor Johnson. The working class in Chicago, voters, Democrats, they were supporting the law and order guy. Forget what in the Chicago mayoral campaign. They were all for the law and order guy. It was the elite bougie whites. And the what is it, the Miracle Mile, whatever it is. It's the elite bougie whites with the underclass that teamed up.
With the managerial class.
The managerial class, perfect. Managerial class with this sort of underclass. They teamed up and they put in. And we're going to see the same thing in New York.
Yeah.
With Mamdani, exact same
which
thing.
is part of the reason why the left is actually goes after the middle class and tries to do what it can to
erode them
and put as many people into the poor or the rich.
Right. Great. Scott Greer had a great bifurcation of the race in the Democrat primary in New York, talking about the Zohran Mamdani, and he was saying the yuppies weren't really for Mamdani. They were kind of split between Cuomo and Adams, the current mayor. And so the yuppies, of course, what does that stand for? Young urban professionals, right? The yuppies. And so he said, but what you saw going for Mamdani was actually the young urban creatives, or the term that he came up with, and it's so good, the yuckies. The yuckies. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So shout out to everyone who is an adherent to the Greer Head pledge, of which I am, including the old one.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.